Hello friends, and welcome to another figure study where I'm finally taking a look at the tiniest Shockwave. Okay, if I'm being realistic, it's probably not the tiniest Shockwave, but it's one of the tiniest official Shockwaves. I don't know, maybe they did world's smallest, but it's the tiniest recent official Shockwave. And that is Transformers Studio Series Core Class Shockwave. And this is a surprisingly wonderful little tank robot man. From a detail perspective, it looks pretty good all around. It's got some weak spots, especially if you look underneath the gun in the front. And around back, you've got Shockwave's head poking out, and you do have his fist sticking off, but he's tiny. I feel like he can get away with it because he's a very tiny, relatively simple thing. But there is some nice molding all over it. The paint separation and color separation is actually pretty good too, with the purple and black along the back, and then also some purple and black in the front around the treads and such. They just did a really good job separating out the colors. And of course you've got the silver detailing on top of that really large cannon, which also looks great. He's really neat. Like, he's very simple. He doesn't have wheels. He doesn't roll. He just slides. But he's shockingly neat, and I'll get into it in a second, but I just really like the engineering on this guy. But yeah, the thing that really surprises me with this guy is the fact that the turret turns. It's a core class Shockwave, and you can rotate the turret around and move it up and down. It's just such clever engineering that you've got this little core class figure that can do that. It's one of those moments where, you look at an official Hasbro Takara Transformer and you're just like, yeah, they still got it. That's what this is. Again, it's small and it's simple, and it's lacking certain articulation and certain details and stuff. It would have been nice if this was a Voyager size figure. We may get a bigger one eventually. I feel like they probably wouldn't want to have Shockwave as just this, as far as toy representation from the Bumblebee movie goes, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. This is just a theory on my part that just popped into my head, so take this with a grain of salt. I could be completely off base here, but maybe Shockwave's going to be in Rise of the Beasts, and they're going to wait until he shows up in that to give him a bigger toy? Just saying maybe. But I am fairly certain that at some point we've got to get a bigger version of this Shockwave, because, like, the core class is great, but I can only imagine how great this would be if it was bigger. And I do mean bigger because, I mean, look at this thing. It's very small. It's core class, so obviously, but it is very small. I will say, to be fair, the way he spreads out, the overall kind of footprint of the vehicle mode is a not terrible size. It's actually kind of big for a core class. And again, I'm referring to the footprint of the vehicle, as in how much space it takes up on a surface. Still not deluxe size, but it's not a bad size, but it is teeny. And yes, I will acknowledge, I do think it's silly that Shockwave's head is just right on the back of the tank mode, but given that's what allows the tank turret to be able to move, I feel like it's a worthwhile sacrifice for something this small. It's clever, It's a little bit silly looking from the back, but it's clever. Core Shockwave's transformation, like I said, is actually really smart. Considering how small this thing is, what it accomplishes is kind of incredible. There's a lot more jointage to the transformation than I expected, with how the torso section kind of unfurls and collapses. There's way more joints in getting that chest lined up than I initially expected. You've got those strange kind of hip joints that allow the legs to shift back into a more bipedal robot position. And again, that thing with attaching the cannon to Shockwave's head in order to allow it to work like an actual tank cannon. I don't swear on the channel, but just imagine a clip from Egoraptor's sequelitis video on Mega Man X in the tutorial stage. Flippin' genius. Just putting the gun on the back of his head like that is actually really smart. You may have noticed during the transformation, I actually waited to take the tank cannon off until after I got him mostly into his robot mode. And that's because the directions when you're going into tank mode tell you to turn him into the tank mode and then plug the cannon on, and then going into robot mode tell you to take the cannon off and turn him into a robot. You get so much more leverage if you keep the cannon on his head and wait until he's in robot mode. So if you take the cannon off in robot mode or attach it in robot mode going into tank mode first, it's actually much, much easier because you just have more leverage. You have more clearance to, if you're taking the cannon off, you can pull it down and wiggle it to pull it out. If you're putting the cannon on, you can lift it up and actually get a finger underneath there to kind of press that peg into the back of his head a little bit more easily. So yeah, if you get this guy and you want to transform him and you're having problems with just how irritating it is to plug that cannon on, take it on and off when he's still like this. But anyway, what we're left with is a really, really neat little Shockwave. He is covered with lots and lots of detail like we saw in the tank mode. A lot of it's pretty much the same, just in a slightly different orientation. But it looks really good, and kind of like what I was saying with Studio Series Soundwave, Studio Series 83 Soundwave, because of the Cybertronian modes, you don't really have to worry about kibble. There's treads on his forearms and treads on his calves, but really, there's no kibble on Core Class Shockwave. I find that really neat. The rest of the painting is kind of simple. There's purple everywhere. You've got a lot of the same details that you got in the tank mode with the gray / gunmetal color on the knees and the tank treads. Similar stuff happening with the tank treads and fists for the forearms, but then, in the chest, you did see the chest in tank mode, but in robot mode, it's got that really nice silver trim around the slightly almost reddish purple for the chest, which looks really good, and the head looks great. I mean, the design is a little bit odd. It still looks like Shockwave because, they've got the ear wings and the yellow mono eye, but it's a little bit kind of flat and stretched out to the sides, but it still looks like Shockwave, and for a core class figure, the head detail on this is great, and there's a lot of paint on it, too. Painted the ears, the little vents on the side of the head, and of course that yellow eye. I can't fault them for the detailing and paint work that they did on this guy. It's really, really good. Probably not perfect, but really good. Now, in terms of articulation, he's, a core class figure, so it's pretty simple, but it's not bad for what it is. You get a 360 head swivel, no up down, no tilt, it just swivels. You got ball jointed shoulders, so you can get a little bit of butterfly action. They can go all the way around. They can go out, not like a full T-pose, but pretty far. You also actually do get bicep swivels. You get an elbow that bends a little under 90 degrees if you don't have the cannon on, and well under 90 if you do have the cannon on, because you just don't have space. Then you also get forearm swivels. So you can actually use that as like a pseudo wrist swivel, which is pretty cool. And that's just for the transformation. There is nothing in the waist, which I feel like they maybe could have fit a waist swivel in here, even with the way it transforms, because all the hinges sit above the waist, but he's a core class figure. The hips can go out, but they are blocked by the hip skirting armor stuff on his thighs, but you can kind of get them out a little bit further if you shift that joint for the transformation a little bit. They can go forward, not exactly 90, and back, not exactly 90. Because of that transformation joint in the middle of the thigh for, getting him into tank mode, you don't get a thigh swivel, and I can understand why they didn't do that. But because his hips are ball joints, you do get a little bit of pseudo thigh swivel just from being able to use the ball joints. The knees go under 90, and this is something I feel like they could have addressed. And then the foot can go up and down, or back and forward. You don't get any ankle tilt, but he is sculpted in an A stance, so there's that. And again, I feel like if this was a bigger figure, then they probably could have worked in ankle tilts. They probably could have worked in knees, or better knees, and thigh rotation, waist rotation, that kind of thing. But again, he's tiny. He's like 4 inches tall. So it's fine. There's just something about the size and simplicity of this guy that I really appreciate. And yeah, he's got some hollow bits here and there, like the backs of the forearms, the insides of the calves. He doesn't have the best articulation, but it's not bad articulation for what he is. And the detailing and paint on this guy, again, for what he is actually really, really nice. And I legitimately do love that transformation. It's really clever. And this guy's just a lot of fun. He's small and simple, but he is a lot of fun. And I wish more Transformers were like this. I don't want to go too hard and say like, oh, this is like the Cyclonus, Kingdom Cyclonus of core class figures, because that's ridiculous. But this is neat. This is a neat little guy. And I would not mind if Hasbro and Takara wanted to put out more core class, Legends class, whatever you want to call them, figures that have this kind of design philosophy behind them, where they're just simple but effective and fun. I just want more of that. I mean, I guess they have been doing that because Kingdom Core Class Soundwave was pretty freaking rad too. But I want more of this. They don't take up a lot of space on my shelf. I like that. But that has been my look at Studio Series Core Class Shockwave. What do you all think of this guy? If you're even a little curious about him, I encourage you to give him a chance because, like I said, he is just a lot of fun despite being this. Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. If you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done and want to support the channel outside of watching the video in the first place, I do have a Patreon. It's a single $1 tier, gets you early access to new videos, access to some behind the scenes stuff, some, in progress stuff when I'm working on customs, that kind of thing. And eventually I want to do polls, so when I have enough people I can start doing polls and y'all can, weigh in on what you think would be fun to cover on the channel. With all that out of the way, thank you everybody for watching, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.